Just before,
Yeah. Now imagine a whole book filled with 9/11s, JFK assassinations, and good things too. You know, major things. I can't think of anything that's really good that's, you know, riveting in the news. Yeah, I don't know. But it's an entire book of the trauma and the triumphs of a people over thousands of years. So certainly their history isn't entirely here. You know, I've heard people, we all have. I've heard preachers say, you know, everything is in the book. No, not everything is in the book. Maybe everything that God intends for you to think is important, but I don't even think that, because there are books that are not in this Bible that are quoted in this Bible. So there was clearly something in those books that were interesting, worth reading. Okay, Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master and in high favor, because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. Now, this victory that he gave to Syria was over the Israelites, was over Israel. He was a Gentile, which means non-Jew. He was a pagan, which means he worshipped other gods. He was the commander of the army that had gone in a few years earlier and kicked the butts of the Israeli army of Israel. Now the kingdom was split at this time between Judah and Israel. But he was the man. He was the man who got it done. But notice what it says right there. Because by him the Lord, and anywhere you see Lord in the Old Testament, the word is Yahweh. Also pronounced Jehovah. Because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. So God himself gave that victory as a judgment against whatever the nation of Israel had going on at that time. And I can tell you exactly what they had going on, because if you look back, don't turn there, but if you look back to what we were covering before about Elijah, they had instituted Baal worship in Israel. They had instituted Asherah worship. They had all these foreign gods that were not gods, but are spiritual entities. You know, we would say demons. Demons isn't a precise word for what they were, but Paul would talk about powers and principalities. In other words, evil spirits that were reigning over a geographic area. Well, the king of Israel had given himself over to that. And that would be Ahab, who was married to Jezebel. We went all through this last week, so I won't beat it to death. Okay. Again, back to Naaman. He was a mighty man of valor, but he was a leper. He had an incurable skin disease. Now the Syrians, on one of their raids, had carried off a little girl from the land of Israel, and she worked in the service of Naaman's wife. She was a slave, a spoil of war. She said to her mistress, Would that my Lord were, and by Lord, it's not Yahweh, it's, you know, just a title of respect. Yeah. Would that my boss were with the prophet who is in Samaria. He would cure him of his leprosy. Eventually, the area, the region, geographic region that we know in this part of the Bible as Israel, began to be called Samaria. By the time Jesus was there, and Jesus has interactions with the Samaritan woman at the well. We talk about the Good Samaritan, and they were pretty much bitter enemies of the Jews by that point. It's funny. You ever notice that the people who are closest to you are the ones you hate the most? You see the things in yourself that you just don't like in them. Yeah.
It's a lot of.
Yeah, if we weren't going live, I'd talk about one of my cousins right now, but whatever.
It's like that, though. You know what I mean? It's weird because the people around you should be able to love and everything, but sometimes it's hard. It's like
it is.
It's like you meet a stranger more of a friend than your friend.
Yeah. And that would be the relationship between the Jews in Judea and the Samaritans in Israel in this particular case. They all started off, they all had Abraham as their father, they all had Moses as one of their prophets. Somewhere along the line, the people in the north began to worship other gods. And it really accelerated under Ahab and Jezebel. Okay. Would that my Lord were with the prophet who is in Samaria. He would cure him of his leprosy. So she's saying, hey, there's a guy back where I came from who could deal with this. So Naaman went in and told his lord, his master, who would be the king of that area. Thus and so spoke the girl from the land of Israel. And the king of Syria said, go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel. In other words, here you go. You got a chance to be healed? Cool. Do it. I'm going to send a letter with you so that you have an introduction. Not that he would need an introduction, since he was the guy who had just kicked their butt a few years earlier. So he went, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 changes of clothing. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, which read, when this letter reaches you, know that I have sent you to Naaman. I have sent to you Naaman my servant, that you may cure him of his leprosy. Okay, and when the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes and said, am I God to kill and to make alive, that this man sends word to me to cure a man of his leprosy? Only consider and see how he is seeking a quarrel with me. He thought he was picking a fight. He's like, this guy is putting something completely impossible on me. Now, if the letter said that, if it said just what the Bible records, well, then the king had no way of knowing that this guy was being passed off, this guy was being directed to a specific prophet. We don't know that. The Bible doesn't tell us. But he was definitely afraid that they were just using this as an excuse to go to war and start it all over again. But when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, he sent to the king, saying, why have you torn your clothes? Tearing your clothes was a sign of grief, anxiety.
Anger.
Yeah, anger. He sent to the king, saying, why have you torn your clothes? Let him come now to me, that he may know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses and chariots and stood at the door of Elisha's house. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored, and you shall be clean. He goes to the prophet's house, shows up at the door. Remember, this is the guy who controls the army who just kicked their butts. And the guy doesn't even come out of his house. He's just like, yeah, go tell him this. Sends a servant out. In other words, yeah, so who are you? You shall be clean. But Naaman was angry and went away, saying, behold, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call upon the name of Yahweh, his God. I thought he would at least show me common respect. Look at me, I'm somebody. And wave his hand over the place and cure the leper. Are not Abana and Pharpah, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned away in a rage. But his servants came near to him and said, my father, it is a great word the prophet has spoken to you. Will you not do it? Has he actually said to you, wash and be clean? In other words, look, he's giving you what you wanted, but you don't like the package. That is the theme of last week, the week before, and this week. You're getting what you wanted, you're getting what you asked for, but you don't like the package that it came wrapped up in.
Right.
You know, I got to tell you, I did not appreciate the God that saved me when I came to the Lord. But I did not expect what God did. I expected God to wave his magic hands and for my life to not be such a mess. I expected there to be goodness and fairy dust and, singing everywhere I went.